Welcome to our supplier page interview with B2Group's CEO, Phil Boland. Now, Phil, you describe yourselves as financial messaging connectivity integration specialists, and since 2002, you've brought on more than 300 corporates. But what does this mean? It's a very techie phrase.
Well, it is. It does describe perfectly what we do, but in terms of the benefits to the corporate, so that the really business angle, it provides, first of all, automation. So there's a lot less risk there. So we're automatically sending payments to the bank rather than them going through some sort of manual process. It provides security and audit.
But is it just multi-bank connectivity?
Well, I say just. I think that's quite a big thing, but it's a number of different facets. So there's ERP or TMS integration.
Yeah, I brought up one of your slides. I mean,
one of our slides.
Talking about is on the left-hand side, isn't it?
Indeed. So if I walk through this is really our bread and butter. What we do, which is the automated, straight-through processing of payments and statements or payment status instructions. So client there read corporate, and bank is its transaction bank. There could be many of those, as we said, or there might be just the one. The client will have a treasury management system or an ERP system.
Doesn't a treasury management system solve the problems?
No, they don't, generally speaking. Some do to an extent. Some do quite well, but we would appeal to people who've got major ERP systems and those ERP systems tend to be often quite, quite specific and quite tailored to the corporate's needs. And we will fully integrate with them, whether they're well-known ones like SAP and Oracle or smaller ones. We then provide everything up until the bank's core system and the return messaging. So my ERP system will generate payments. We will take those payments. We can connect with the bank. Either here we've got a little box there, Jack, if you see the blue box, agent.
Yeah.
That is our own connectivity solution. Now that is entirely secure. It encrypts, it signs the files at the corporate and sends them to the bank where they're decrypted. It may go to the bank via our own data centers, or it may go directly to the bank. So we offer within a cloud, but a very regulated, overseen cloud. It's not just computing anywhere. It's very specific and secure. We provide translation services which will allow any file coming out of the corporate, so for payments or direct debit mandates and so on, to be translated, enriched if necessary. So it would be enriched with, let's say, bitcode validation. We buy bitcodes from Swift to put into the payments, that sort of thing, or bank sort codes, and then sent on to the bank in the specific format the bank requires.
Can you do it anywhere in the world?
Yes, anywhere in the world. And as I say, the agent is our own connectivity solution. That would be for somebody who didn't choose to use one of the proprietary networks. Obviously, the biggest one is Swift, and there are cost savings there, significant. It's effectively free once you've installed it, but there are...
So you wouldn't go through Swift?
Don't have to.
Avoid.
You can avoid Swift. But there are obviously very good advantages with Swift as well. I'm not least, for example, if I'm a corporate with lots of subsidiaries and I've got, let's have a think, 60, 100 subsidiaries around the world with separate banking relationships. Maybe they came from acquisitions and so on. Then that's a huge number of bank statements to get in every day. And we know that those banks are likely going to be linked up to Swift, almost certainly. So there's very little work to do in terms of infrastructure. By that I mean the connectivity to get those bank statements.
And do you also do the auditing and go chasing banks if they haven't reported and that sort of thing?
Yes, we do. We can identify, we'll assume we'd be receiving an MT940 or equivalent every day, and the system will throw an alert up if that has not been received and it's anticipated. We can even do that for messages coming from subsidiaries for cash forecasting as well. If they're expected to post a forecast through to head office and it doesn't come, we can set a flag up, and either we could do the chasing. Typically, we would more inform the client, who would then be alerted to, very quickly chase up their bank.
Where does Payment Factory fit in this? Because this is an increased application inside corporate.
Right. We have principally two offerings under our Global Transaction Services platform. One we call Channel Connect, which is pretty well the slide you see now, and that will affect the transport of a payment file in any standard, transform it, enrich it, and so on, inject it into the bank, and get a 940 back or similar, or even perhaps an intraday 942 interim statement. The Payments Factory side is once you're within the bank. So I couldn't imagine that being on site at the corporate unless you had a very large corporate that also acted as a bank as well, of course. That we call PayX, and that will handle all sorts of complex processing in terms of further transformations and enrichment within the bank, routing through to in-country systems, for example, where you've got a corporate that might be making payments into, we work with, say, South African banks where they're servicing 19 different countries around Africa. So our payment execution system will inject into those different banking systems, and basically getting through to everything to the point where it's posting credits and debits to a ledger, if you will, handling suspense accounts and the complex sort of flow of processing you need to do that.
Now, one of the things that really tells people how the product is developed, they learn so much about how the product is developing. Over the last 12 months, what are the new things that the B2 Group have introduced, new services, functionality?
Right. Well, primarily two things. One is in the normal course of our business, as we will acquire a new banking client. Majority at the moment of our clients and our work, if you define your customer as the person you actually send an invoice to, would be a bank. However, the beneficiaries of the services are corporates, and we have worked.
So you do the work for the bank at the corporate.
Indeed, yes. So those three, I think it's now about 400 corporates we've onboarded. Most of those we've actually had our engagement with the bank, but just over the last 12 months, we have added new standards, new in-country formats, and so on, just as we grow our client base, so our functionality grows in that way, but really enriching the existing products that we have.
Do the corporates use you directly?
Some do, and that's what I wanted to get onto, Jack. It's we've begun to realize a lot of corporates have said very nice things to us. Some have turned to being direct clients. Obviously, we've had to get very specific permission from our banking clients to do that, but some have turned to being direct clients of B2, and we've identified in the last year and developed products that are more specifically tailored to the corporate. Our traditional products have been very much give it to the bank to facilitate them winning business from other banks, to move a corporate across quickly, and so on. I didn't tend to traditionally look at it from the corporate's point of view, even though we did a lot of the work for the corporates. We have now identified and piloted products that are specifically run at the corporate. They have to be easier to run. The banks tend to have much bigger IT departments. I'm talking about, orders of magnitude 100 times bigger, and so on. They have a very different budget because they're servicing all their corporate clients with a single instance of our software, whereas the corporate is one corporate. So
they haven't got as much money.
Not at all. Put it in simple terms, they have nothing like as much money to spend, and it's quite clear why. So it has to be easier to deploy and cheaper to deploy, and more, it's a bit of a buzzword, but shrink wrapped, more the sort of thing that you can buy off the shelf and install. So what I'm talking about...
Is that the future then? It's sort of shrink wrap connectivity for the corporates But you've got to cope with things like the evolving standards of the ISO 20022, mobiles
Yes.
coming. How are you going to cope with that?
Right. We offer that as what we call our market change management service. And that means we keep very closely abreast with changes in standards. So this year as what we did the last 12 months, we deployed our first ISO pane version 4 payments messages. I think we've only done it with one corporate at the moment. It's not very popular, but new standards, we know about those before the corporates or the banks do, and we advise them on them. We stay very close to SWIFT, so if there are changes on some of the traditional SWIFT messages, then we're aware of those. So what you get with our new GTS for Corporates product, which will be formally launching later this year, but it's already running in pilot, amongst other things, is a full market change management service, so that any new standards, well, I say any that we know about, which should be most of the market, will be accommodated. What we've also done is taken some time to sit down and go through a day in the life of a corporate treasurer from their point of view, not from the bank's point of view, and really see where the pain points were that would be applicable to our products. Now, as I say, if somebody's got a full-blown TMS system and maybe some consultancy or whatever around that to adapt it, they could do all of this themselves. Similarly with some of the ERP systems, but they tend to be a lot less flexible than what we have. So we can offer a tailored both connectivity solution, but also tools for integration. So I come in the morning, I know with B2, I'm going to be able to see all of my bank statements. I'm going to know if a subsidiary bank account has not sent a statement, or perhaps if they've not sent a cash forecast message when they were supposed to. I can then use that information to upload into perhaps some kind of modeling tool like Cognos and so on, or I can generate reports directly myself with B2. I can monitor my payments going out.
Well, thank you, Phil. That was most interesting, and I'm sure CTMfile readers will enjoy viewing this. Thank you.
Well, Jack, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.